a special episode of the Roofing Operating System podcast. We got not one, but two fire guests in the house from Roofr in the building. One of my top picks for 2025's roofing softwares. Gents, what's going on? It's been an absolute pleasure.
What's up, Nick? How are you? Thanks for having us.
What's going on, man? Good to chat.
So, yeah, hey, I appreciate it. So, I've kind of seen it all in the roofing space, right? And I like to have just clear transparency. And, when you're doing something where you're implementing software for contractors, the biggest thing is you're not really just betting on this year. You're betting on the next 5 years. You're betting on the next 10 years, right? It's almost like buying a stock where you just want to grow with that system. And so one thing that I've really liked about you guys is I feel like you guys have a good roadmap in terms of new product features that's basically feedback from other contractors. Mm-hmm. And then the way that you guys have been able to implement it in such a clean interface. Now, when you guys first started, what was the vision for the software? Was it, hey, we got to solve this specific problem? Or was it, we're going to be the best at this? Or we're going to be the all-in-one? What was kind of that vision, and has it changed or evolved since then?
Oh, yeah. A lot of changing and evolution in it. When we first started back in 2016, we were actually a marketplace for roofers. So our first tool we did was a instant estimator tool. So the instant estimator that everybody knows and loves with Roofr, that was our first product. So we've been building and iterating that over 9 years. And the whole idea was Richie, our CEO, who is an inferior shingler to me. I am a much better installer than he is. And then he'll
talking trash already. I see how it goes out there.
And we'll send this directly to his inbox. But he's my cousin. So his dad taught my dad how to roof. My dad taught me and him how to roof when we were 12. So throughout the years of us roofing, banging on shingles, doing all that stuff, he had this idea, is just like, this system is not working properly. There's the big companies that charge a lot. And then there's the fly-by-night companies that are scamming people and they're charging nothing. And people need to realize that like that middle ground and that upper middle ground is the sweet spot for getting your roof done. So he wanted to create some more transparency in it. So he created the instant estimator so you can price shop, price condition, price qualify, and customers can see what was there. And what happened is they would do the instant estimate, and at the end they would get recommended roofers by us, a list of them that we pre-vetted, qualified, and everything else.
So that was the lead system kind of.
That was our marketplace. So we would send out free leads essentially to approved contractors, and they would only pay us if they sold it. And it was going well. Like I was the only sales guy at Roofr, so I started right near the beginning. And I was selling 50 to 80 roofs a month over month, never going into a job, just over the phone. And this was in California, Florida, and Ontario, Canada, where I am. And
pioneer at that time for sure.
Oh yeah. And it was, we were getting a lot, we were doing well, but what we were noticing, and it starts the evolution thing, is that it's taking a long time for contractors to upload their quotes. And speed to lead, which you've seen our masterclass before with me and Pete, we preach it nonstop. And even then in 2017, we're like, this is taking too long. We're losing out on jobs because people are coming in. It's an urgent matter. People are not shopping for roofs well ahead of time. It's usually should hit the fan, there's water coming in. And so we talk to the roofers and they're like, well, I got to go out and measure the roof. So we're like, okay, well, let's build a measurement tool. So that's our first evolution. Build that measurement tool, found product market fit very quickly. And then another thing that me and Pete talk about is I can give all the transparency and education. There it is, Pete, as you can do over the phone and everything, and really kind of showing value to that customer. But at the end of the day, when the husband and wife are sitting at home talking together about the quotes that they got from my companies and then the other companies around them, if my quote looks like the other guy's quote, but he's $4,000 cheaper, they're not going to be able to have that value left behind. So we built out a full stack presentation style proposal system that leaves value behind. So you can present well and you can leave that value well and you can leave it behind. And so that's kind of where we pivoted from that marketplace. We sunsetted that and did a full stack sales system, which was lead acquisition through a lead capture tool with the instant estimator, measure the roof, and then build the proposal. And then
That's kind of an interesting combo right there, how that got built out.
yeah, it just
Because
kind
it all
of
flows well.
yeah, and it was what the needs were, right? And we just kind of were like listening to our contractors, building what they needed and what they wanted. And then it got to a point where, okay, the next thing after that, right, Pete, is, well, you got to invoice them, you got to order materials, and then we're 2 steps away from a CRM, might as well go all in. So we kind of did the CRM backwards. We went from the sales tools, built up those full stack tools that not a lot of CRMs have, and then built the stuff around it.
I appreciate the story. That's actually really in depth and great to know. A lot of cool stuff that I didn't know. I would say like one of my favorite aspects is some of that stuff that you actually talked about is that measurement tool, able to go into, these proposal templates where now you guys have, SRS, ABC supply all integrated, right? So now you have all your pricing straightened out, right? You know what your profits are going to be. And then once it's accepted, you're able to do material orders straight from that, right? And so just the way you guys were able to streamline that is amazing. And I think, that's one of the areas where I thought you guys really stood out. And another area was the interface. I think some tools that I've used seem a little bit out of date, or that there's not like a focus on user experience. Like even when you guys pull up like a job file, like I love the view of that and how you guys have been able to just add different almost little widgets or whatever you want to call it to that card. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about kind of your guys' approach to that side of things for just making the experience cleaner and more modern for these contractors?
I think the biggest thing, right, the biggest piece of feedback that we hear, like when Nick and I are at shows and stuff like that, if you ask a contractor that uses us, why do you use Roofr? You're going to get 2 answers, right? Price, you guys are priced well, and you're simple.
Oh, yeah.
You're simple to use, right? Like you're simple to find stuff. And what a lot of contractors will say is, it leads me down the path to what's next, right? Like if I do something, it's very clear where I go next, what I'm supposed to do next, right? It's very easily laid out. I'm not having to hunt for things and find things. And so I think from the beginning, I've been with the company since 2021, right? So when we were literally building proposals when I came on, and, to see that evolution of how we've built the product. But the one thing that's stayed at the core of it is we have to be simple, right? Like we have to be super easy and super clean. And, everything has to be designed with that in the back of your mind, is that no matter how complex the software gets, because obviously as you build a CRM, you get very complex, right? You're adding a ton of features. So, there's a lot of moving parts, but in order to really, like you said, in order to keep that from getting clunky and difficult to use, you've got to keep this in the back of your mind, that how do we design this in a way that it continues to keep that simplistic feel, even though it's complex on the back end to get these things done. How do we make it very straightforward, very easy, for you to know where you're going next, to find stuff, and a lot of thought goes into it. Really, the biggest thing that I will say about our team that probably differs, even from where I was prior, is the amount of time that's spent on the research and discovery end, the amount of interviews that are done with contractors, the amount of contractor suggestions that we take from the sales team, and all of that stuff comes into play when we start to build. And so, and as the process goes on, we're still putting it in front of contractors and saying, what do you think about this? How do you think this looks? Like, how do you think this operates? How would this be out in the field, right? What if you had to do this on mobile? All of these things that we have to think about that help to keep it simplified and keep us dialed in on making a product that, like you said, has just a really clean interface. I think that's really been one of our strongest points, is that it's very easy to come on to Roofr and learn the product very quickly and be able to utilize it very quickly, right? And that's traditionally not the way CRMs have been.
I mean, that's what caught my interest right off the bat, was as soon as I logged in, I was like, ooh, this is nice, right? And I was able to jump around pretty easily. And like you said, genius is making the complicated simple. So even if in the back ends, some of the automation, the setup, whatever it might be, sounds complicated, once it's set up, then everything is simple, right? I mean, with these automations, you can set it where if you're setting an event, or you have a proposal status change, or it's a duration-based thing where it's sitting there for too long, I mean, you can have it where it's automatically following up, where it's automatically communicating, it's automatically sending reminders, automatically creating tasks, it's automatically moving pipeline stages, right? Because the biggest thing is you want to take it manual stuff off as much as possible, right? Because that's where you're going to have the most hiccups, because people will forget or whatever it might be. And so, I mean, you can automate the entire workflow from basically a new lead all the way to close out.
And that's big for us too. Like Pete and I always say, every automation that you put in is another hat off your head. And I think that's like actually something that's very not well known about Roofr is the build out of the automations and how robust it already is. And we're going through another redesign of it, adding in more features. One came in this week. Nic, I don't know if you've seen our signatures product, which is essentially a DocuSign built into Roofr. So we have that going live right now. We have about 60 people on closed beta. Back to what Pete says, a lot of research goes in, a lot of real-time thing. It's not the same people every time. It's different. We want that feedback to kind of build out. But we have automations that kind of set up into that as well. So that if something is viewed, send out this message. If something is completed, send out this task. And they're easy to do. They're if, then, and, ors, right? And you can create that aspect. And running a business is difficult enough. You have so much stuff going on nonstop, and you're running around. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So when we're building a tool out, such as Roofr, we want to make sure that, to Pete's point, the next step is just obvious. Or if in each one of those job cards at the top, the sections are the flow of your work. So there's job details, there's tasks, there's measurements, proposals, documents, work orders, blah, 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 and it goes across the board. So it's very sequential. But it comes down to as well is like, how can we make this even more feasible for a company, no matter what the size, that the people who are in charge of that company can work on the company rather than working in the company. You want to be able to give them that expertise back. And that comes back to the automations being as sophisticated as they are and growing out, but also that interface to keep on having that flow. Let's face it, not a lot of roofers are super tech savvy. I'm not at work at Roofr. Like, I mean,
it's just a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to think about all these different SOPs, all these different operations, right? You really have to process your business, and then all of a sudden, then you go implement it. It is a lot of work while you're operating your business. So it's like, you know, if you don't have somebody who's techie, it's a good idea to be leaning even on you guys. I know you guys have a great support team too. You guys have always been helpful to anybody that I've worked with. But it's funny, like, I'll be setting somebody's, Roofr up, and all of a sudden 2 new features drop in the middle of it. Like, you guys are on top of that, which I love, right? And so, and it's like the right features, I think, too. You know what I mean? So it's not just adding a feature because you think it's cool. I think, on the automations too, if anybody's overwhelmed on the automation side, the word automations, I think, is probably the scariest part. But it's just like what Nic is saying. It's just if then. So like what I like to do is just record yourself talking to your team, going through the whole process of everybody's responsibility, right? And if this happens, then this happens, right? If this happens, this happens. Take that recording, you can upload it, and all these AI tools will make you a mind map. Now you have a visual. Right. And now it's like, oh, if this happens, right? Oh, then they get this task, whatever it might be. Now and you can just go one by one making those out from the start.
100%.
You guys have any other tips on any of that stuff, or any kind of like common areas where you see people getting a little bit confused on, whether it's on automation, proposals, catalog, any of this thing on like the sales side, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, and Nic has touched on it in a number of our master classes, but if you go into our automations, we've actually got some pre-built automations in there. So if you're not sure where to start, or you're, like you said, maybe you're hesitant about starting because you feel like it's a lot, you can get in there, and we have some pre-built automations in there that you can just plug in, essentially turn them on, and they're at least a good starting point. If you've never used an automation in your life, they're actually going to help you just walk through the process and understand kind of the if-then, like you talked about, right? You're going to get that if-then idea down. And it's very straightforward, right? Like, one of the things that, I was just talking to somebody the other day is, if you think about, like, I remember when we built automations and things like that back at the other company that I was with, you're talking 6-7 years ago, not as much as the software in the roofing space has improved, the software that we use to build these products has improved drastically, right? Like I can plug an idea into an AI tool and have a working prototype in like 15 minutes now, where before I would have had to wait weeks for mock-ups and wireframes and all this stuff. Right. So it allows me to test things faster. It allows me to build things faster. It allows me to, streamline the ideas and tweak things better. You talked
Are
about.
you the nerd then, Pete? Like, are you the nerd behind this then, or what?
No, I'm like,
that's what I'm getting from this.
I'm on the product side of it, but but it's, because I look back and I'm like, hey, we did what we did at my former company with the technology that we had 6-7 years ago, right? And so now we're building a similar tool, but with the technology we have today. And so you talked about earlier, like, some of these products are clunky and, a little bit, they're not as easy to use. And honestly, it's because of the way they were built, right? And nothing against those tools because they were built with what they had at the time.
Exactly.
But you're talking about 5, 6, 7-year-old technology.
Now it's so out of date though.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, so you have products like us and Proline that are being built with present day technology, which is completely changing the game of how we can build these things. The speed we can build with, the technology, the interface, all these things are improved because of it. And so
because every time you add a feature to an old system that's out of date, it's still kind of crappy because your max capability is what it was back then, basically, right? So you're going to run into additional limitations.
Well,
so do you guys have a process though, like with getting stuff out so quick then, or do you guys feel like you guys do a good job with just milestones or project planning in terms of releasing these features in a clean way and fast?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a ton of front end research, right? There's a ton of stuff done up front so that there's not a lot of tweaking on the back end. Like our idea is when a feature comes out and goes into beta, there should be very minimal adjustments at that point, right? And maybe some small tweaks, right? Contractors use it. They're like, hey, if this was worded different, those type of tweaks are expected, but there shouldn't have to be any major overhauls when that thing hits, right? And so, but a lot of that is attributed to the work that guys do on the front end to prepare and understand the feature and to weed out, the important parts versus the nice to have stuff and really focus on, like you said, you made a comment that really made a lot of sense is like, you guys build the features that you need, right? Like you're not building features because it'd be cool to have. Like you're building features, things are coming out that contractors need. And that's a lot of that is attributed to the amount of research and discovery that these guys do and the time that we take to do that, because it's like, hey, we're going to build a calendar feature. Sure, there's a million things you could build in a calendar feature, but let's build the things that these guys are going to use that they need. And by doing that, it allows us to stay very clean. It allows us to stay very, lean. It allows us to get things out fast, but a lot of it is just doing our homework, right? And we take suggestions from the contractor extremely serious. I mean, you can ask Nick, we have a huge suggestions channel that, like, even this morning I was going through and there's already tons of stuff popping in there from this morning, just from phone calls with contractors. Contractor says, it'd be really cool if it did this. Somebody throws in that channel and then we can go in there.
Facebook messages, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like nonstop feedback.
100%.
So, yeah. But we take that stuff very serious.
How are you guys looking at the future then? Because I think you guys would probably agree this is going to be the fastest like tech change speed, right, of just advancement probably ever upcoming. Like, how are you guys looking at that, and how are you looking at that specifically then in kind of the roofing space?
Yeah, it's been crazy to see everything that's going in, and that's kind of what we're looking to. Is kind of we're in a unique spot, and I'll let Pete, because he's the product strategist, kind of go into like some of the future ideas as well. But we're in a unique spot because we're the only CRM out there that you do not need single source solutions to be added in. Like, you don't need to add in a measurement tool. We have ours. We don't need to add a proposal tool. It's not an extra add-on. We have essentially a version of like a DocuSign-like tool being added in that you don't need an additional subscription fee or anything else like that. It's an estimator, all that stuff. So we're in a unique space where we can build faster because the tools, we're not integrating with outside sources. We're integrating with our tools that are already included into that, which allows us to kind of streamline and create the one true operating system for roofers. But Pete, go into some of the cool stuff that we're looking to build out and open up a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's a mindset change, right? Like back when CRMs were first built, they were built with like that HubSpot mindset of like, we just want to be this foundational tool that you can plug all your stuff into. You can figure out what proposal tool you want to use and what measurement tool you want to use, and you just plugged them all in. And everything was built with the integration in mind, and that put the contractor in a very unique situation where he had to understand the tools. He had to understand how they work together, if they talk to each other. And, there's still companies out there today that you see that have CTOs because of that setup, right? And they have someone on staff, an operations manager, who's literally building their proposals and managing their software. And so the idea of getting away from that, I think, has always been a vision of Richie's. I remember back in 2021 when I was interviewing with Richie, and he told me his vision to build this like all-in-one solution and move away from that idea. At the time, I was thinking like, this isn't how you do it, right? Like, this is crazy, but if we pull it off, it would be fantastic, And that's kind of the idea, right? Like, that's still been at the heart of what we do is like, hey, we could integrate that, but we could also build it, and it would make it so much more streamlined and efficient if it was all just built together in our product. And it allows us to control it too, right? It allows us to make sure it talks well with the other pieces that you're using. So where you, as a contractor, you're not having to worry about that. We take all that guesswork and all of that learning curve out of it, right? And so, ultimately the idea, I think for us, the vision for us is to go beyond just being the CRM. Traditionally that's what everyone just thinks like, I need a CRM, right? But for us to go
an operating system
and become an operating system, yeah.
It's like, okay, I converted somebody from a different CRM to you guys, and they saved $7,200 or $7,200 every single month, right? So it's like you guys are adding all these bells and whistles, right? You guys are like this crazy low price, right? So you guys want to be a complete operating system. I do like that you guys are so committed to it. Obviously, it shows in your product development. So then how are you looking at, is there any essential integrations, right? I know you guys were working on some stuff like QuickBooks, but I'll be honest, majority of the QuickBooks integrations that I've used, a lot of them aren't that great anyways, where it's off half the time. So, how are you guys looking at stuff like that? Is there any essential integrations like something like that? Or is it, hey, we can do the whole powerhouse basically?
There's always going to be essential ones. Like QuickBooks is just ubiquitous amongst bookkeeping. Like there's Xero, there's Wave, there's other ones in there, but QuickBooks is like the gold standard there. So it's there. It's funny you mentioned QuickBooks integrations. As we're like releasing it, we're seeing like all the nuances and changes in how every single roofing company does accounting differently. So trying to build something. It's
the wildest part of any of the integrations. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's because you can build a basic one, right? That just pushes the information over, but to have it like map and be an operating system is where like we're building out some extra stuff to it and adding it in. But then there's like Gmail, GCal, Outlook. Those things are like Gmail and GCal will be out really, really soon. I was just playing with it in my production environment in there. And then, the normal stuff like the ABC, SRS, QXO, I almost said the other word.
Those are great. Yeah, right.
Those ones are essential too. But we're trying to, and Pete can talk more about it, we're trying to build the stuff in there. Like you can get a DocuSign, you can get a Natural Forms or whatever the case is, but that's an extra subscription that you're paying outside of it. Then you have to build something that works with it. And if they change, you have to change. We're on the mindset of like, let's just build it ourselves. Let's not rely on somebody else. Let's build it within there. And then we have control to build it the way that roofers need it to be, rather than being like, like DocuSign does it this way, so you have to do it that way. It's like, okay, or we can just build our own DocuSign and build a form. So we built the signatures, which is available in the Elite plan. You can use it now if you reach out to us. We can get you on in the beta. Nice. And it maps everything in there, all your information, dynamic fields, signatures, all check boxes, all the stuff that you need on your day-to-day for notice of completions, contingencies, single color selections, whatever the case is, and tying that in. So that's a big focus of us, is there is integrations that you'll need to do that are just kind of make your life easy. But if you don't want to use Gmail and GCal, our system does email and calendar very well, right? So we build out it both ways.
So I got two questions now. You want to talk about the AI question or the automations questions?
We could start with automations because that means I can contribute, and then the AI, it's just you and Pete. I could just mute.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So if you're looking at this being a complete operating system, like I said, with your automations already, you can basically automate your whole workflow, like new lead all the way to close, right? Do you think you guys are going to try to make it as expansive as like a complete marketing automation software? Some of these tools that can do all these different types of things, see whatever. Or do you think that would be something that they would try to add on, right? Like if they're using like a go high level or, with something like that.
There is, like I said, we're updating and adding into the automations as we speak and building up, and it'll be like a progressive thing, just like our other tools. Keep on adding and building on it, taking the customer suggestions and stuff. And no, we will very soon have the ability to kind of like sequence and all that stuff. But we got to keep in mind, kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation, is there is such a thing as overkill. Like, can you take, and we've seen someone who came to us from another CRM recently who had sequences and all the bells and whistles, be able to literally replicate what he did in that one into ours with the way that it is now, without the advancements that we're getting to. So you want to make sure that it's not overkill where it's hard to learn. That learning curve is important to us, so that we want to make it robust, functional, and it gets the job done that you need it to do, and it will continue to get better. But we don't want to make it to a system where you have to pay someone to figure it out for you, or the implementation is not making sense of it. Like, we want to be able to do this and get you up and running quickly, especially like now is a great example. It's busy season for roofers. You're out going, the weather's nice. It's not raining a lot. So you're going. If you're a new company just starting now, you're hitting the ground running. You want to be able to get things set up quickly. So our focus is like to build out the automations to continue to get more robust, to be able to take on everything through sequencing, through changes, through updates and stuff like that, but not to do overkill, like add things in there for the sake of adding things.
Right. Yeah. It's cool. 100%. And if you're new too, if you're just getting going, you maybe, first couple of years, you probably don't have a whole lot of processes anyways. So having any kind of basic foundation, just getting set up in the beginning, is going to be super huge, right? And it's a tool that you can grow into, and you can start to add in all the bells and whistles, right? But don't overwhelm yourself in the beginning. Keep it simple. Make sure that it's an asset, because unfortunately, a lot of roofers, you see it, they have a big liability, a big expense every month, right? Make sure you're maximizing it. And no matter how easy it is, make sure you're training your team on it. So make it part of their learning process and going into the role, whether they're in sales or if they're office admin, whatever it might be. Just make that part of the training, right? Yep. Where you make sure that they feel confident in it. That's the biggest thing. Showcase how it makes their life easier, and then you're good to go.
And that's the thing too. We want to open that up a little bit more as well for mid-market enterprise companies to use us more often. Right now, they're able to do that with the automation, but we want to make it more kind of sequential, right? So that you have those sequences built in. You have the if, then, and, or, and action statements now that can trigger different messaging throughout that sales process. Because right now, being able to follow up on a lead, sequence that lead, follow up on a quote that went out, sequence that, and make sure that this system is selling for you and pushing things along with increasing that communication with the automations that we have with our calendar to keep them up to date on material drops, installs, upcoming appointments, changes in appointments, and everything else. That part tied in right now is great, but we want to build on that to the next step and keep the big part of that, kind of looking into everything there.
Yeah, and one of the
maybe
things,
before the go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I want to add, for the folks that are listening is, one of the conversations that we have internally all the time is, is this something that a roofer really needs? Right? Because, I can tell you that at my former company, 70% of the users on the platform used 50% of the platform or less. right? So just because we had the features doesn't mean they were using it, right? And I still talk to contractors every day that when we look at their system that they have in place, let's say it's not Roofr, we look at their system and I ask them questions about it and they're like, oh yeah, well I pay for that, but we don't really use it. Or yeah, we have it, but we don't really effectively use it. We probably should do better, right? And so I think just because you've seen it, right? Or just because other platforms potentially have it, I think the question, if you're someone who's like shopping for a CRM, is when you're looking at feature sets, go through the list and be like, is this something we're actually going to use? Like, this is something that's really table stakes, crucial to the operation. And you'll be amazed at how much stuff you could probably weed out and how simple you can make your workflow and how simple the product that you're using can be. Like Nic said, we've had guys come from much more complex softwares and be like, hey, I was able to take what you guys have, which isn't what they have yet, and do exactly the same things just by simplifying the process down, getting the same result, by just streamlining what I was doing a bit and being able to do it in Roofr. So, it's just making them kind of like rethink it a bit. And, but I think that that's something that, we get in this kick of like, well, I saw it at, platforms X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to make sure these guys have it too. And I think more or less it's like, hey, ask yourself, it's great. I mean, all of those things are great, like you said, but 90% of the time, you don't need all those bells and whistles, especially not early on, right? So I think it's important to ask yourself, like, okay, what are really at the core? What are the things that I really need to get my team through the day, to help them run more efficiently, to be more streamlined? And then let's narrow it down to those things, and then let's shop for a product that does it. One of the things you said at the very beginning is something that I get up and preach often, is like, don't buy a CRM that works for you today. Right? Buy a CRM that's going to work for you where you want to be 5 years from now. Because that's one of the biggest mistakes we see when people shop for CRMs. It's like, hey, I'm going to buy a product that fits what we're doing right now. And then 2 years from now, it doesn't fit anymore. And now I'm shopping again. Right? And we all know that that's like a massive headache, right? To switch CRM. So, especially if you're...
And like you said, though, it's an operating system, right? So you got to think, right? You're not just implementing a CRM, you're implementing an operating system, the technology, the processes, right? From point A to point Z. It's a big deal, right? Every single person in your organization will be utilizing this system. It is a big deal. Take the time, right? Be strategic and really think about just being a business operator and dialing in your business. It's a lot of work and it's a commitment. And I'll say this, as you said, hey, we keep it simple. Some people I work with, I notice they get stuck on this little quirks that's like, oh, but this, this little quirk. I'm like, but why is that quirk so important to you? Right? Can we let it go? Right? Can we let it go?
Yeah.
Because you can save the time and it might not be worth it. But when you're looking at Roofr, for the most part, you can customize it as much as you want to fit the style of your business, right? Your pipelines, your automation, the way you use the calendar, you kind of name it, you can mold it to fit the way you want.
Absolutely.
And that's a big point that you brought up there too. Like Pete said, growing with you. So when you're shopping around for CRMs, hopefully you get to demo a bunch of them, maybe one that looked like this.
And how they do that? How do they do that? What's the best way?
Roofr.com, click on Start for Free, and somebody will reach out to you, or you can go to Roofr.com and book a call right off that one. So ROOFR.com.
Definitely check them out.
Check us out. See, and maybe you'll get me. Who knows? But maybe we'll throw it in
your
there.
Closet, man.
Celebrity demo.
I know. Jeez. I wish I had a hat on.
I'm going to put it, you have feedback for him? I'm going to put that in there.
Yeah, there's the 1 star right there. But the big thing to keep in mind is like when you're looking at it, it's just like some of these legacy systems haven't made a lot of updates. They haven't made a lot of strides because they got to where they are and they're a good system. They do very well with that. But you got to think about as you grow as a company and as you're taking that next step, is your CRM growing with you? So look at the systems that are constantly updating. You mentioned earlier that you're helping implement people and you see new features come in all the time. And
insurance fields, a job costing field pops up, it's
like
boom, boom.
Like what who are we listening to throughout that process? And that's super important. And you want to be able to grow with that. And the other thing is too, every roofing company is different. And people have those quirks. And sometimes we at Roofr have to teach them, be like, okay, this is a way that you've been doing it, but this is a way that will actually be better for your company. This will help you flow. And similar to what you do, Nick, that's what we also do with you get, if you're working with Nick and us, you get like double the fun there, because you get the Roofr advisors, so if you're your account managers, you get the implementation specialists. And we don't just say, okay, here's how you use it and let's train you. We talk about, this is ways that you can kind of like look at your short-term and long-term goals and how you can achieve them in Roofr. So show you better ways to kind of maybe do material orders, show you better ways to quote to be more profitable, add in different types of upgrades. These are the things that increase your average deal size. Those are things that you want in a partner with a CRM. A CRM should not just be a tool. It should be a partnership with you to help you grow.
100%.
And the last thing is, make sure that you're diving into a system that is replicable. That is, like, when we talk about growing you as a company, you're going to start hiring on people. You do not want a system that's overcomplicated with bells and whistles that you're never going to use. So it's difficult to help train that person that you're hiring. You want them to ramp fast. You want them to be able to sell fast and be able to make you money fast, because ultimately that's how you're going to get good retention there. But you want a system that's easy to teach. So if you go with a system that has that pre-implementation, that has the account managers that help you out with that, and something that is built like by roofers to show the workflow of roofing, it's going to help you succeed a lot quicker throughout that process.
100%. I worked with somebody when I transferred them over to you guys, converted them over to you guys. And what I like to start out with is basically just productizing your services, right? So simplifying it that way, good, better, best, upgrades, whatever it is, right? And from there, it's like, okay, so we'll make a sales presentation, right? That is interactive. They can click on it. They can pick their good, better, best. They can do the upgrades. When they show up, the measurement tool already created the proposal, right? That matches your sales presentation for the good, better, best. They pick it. You can put financing in there. Perfect. Boom, boom, done. You can do one called close, right? And so they said 23% increase in close rate, right? And so, and not only that, you can see average ticket sizes going up, right? Always throw in the upgrades, always offer. I was told, I don't know what you guys think about this, but I was told to put the first, actually, like the most expensive, then take away. But
the best,
either
better,
way,
good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I did want to, so the AI side, especially because, you guys were talking about doing a lot of stuff where you build it out internally rather than through integration. Do you guys envision at some point having something internally in AI, or are you guys going to rely on a partner for something like that? Or how do you guys see the future of that?
Yeah, I think the goal is to build it internally if we can, to as much extent as we possibly can. I think that, there's just so many opportunities when we start to map out, where AI could be beneficial in the product and in the flow for the roofer. There's just so many opportunities. Like, you think early on, like I just had a conversation with a roofer yesterday about, like the call center side of it, the AI for the speed to lead stuff, and that's where your mind goes right away. But there's just so many other things,
Proposal signed, right? Proposal signed. As soon as it's signed, move it over to proposal signed. Have AI caller to schedule it on the calendar, right? Like you're saying, it's just too many ideas almost.
Yeah. There's just a ton of stuff. And so as far down as like I've seen actual one-off versions where guys have built AI assistants to where instead of having to dig into reports for information, they can ask an AI assistant. It'll scrub the CRM and to pull back information, pull back data for them. So there's just so many things that you can do with AI that I think it's, and it's the thing about AI too, is like it's changing almost by the day. Use ChatGPT. It's like, it's nuts what that program is capable of now, even compared to when it first came out. And that hasn't been that long, right? So so with that constant evolution of it, I think it's just opening more and more doors as to what AI is going to be capable of inside of the roofing platform. So yeah, obviously it's something that is on the radar. It's something that we're looking at and how we can implement it, how we can potentially leverage it to streamline it even more, and obviously the AI, the big thing about AI, which I love, is that it just adds to the simplicity, right? Like using AI inside the tool is just going to make the tool that much cleaner, that much faster to use. And, so yeah, it's definitely something that we're looking at incorporating as much.
I'd be excited for a product guy. Yeah. Right? If you're working on something or thinking about stuff like that.
Like the new.
What about Nick? You mentioned something about, like enterprise and getting that clientele excited. What do you guys looking at like for the future, let's say I'm a commercial roofer that's doing 30 million. You know, what are you thinking about when you're talking about serving that clientele and stuff they could get excited about?
Yeah. So when we're talking about like the legacy CRMs out there, it's interesting looking at what they kind of market towards and then what the actual market is. So the roofing market as a whole is 85% of it is small to medium sized businesses, and 15 is mixed in with enterprise and mid-market plus, we call it. And when you're looking at 85% of the industry, but all the legacy CRMs are all enterprise-based CRMs. So everybody who's coming in or getting going or anywhere from like that $0 to $20 million mark are using tools that they don't need, right? Like Pete said, they're using a portion of that, but paying that enterprise price. So our subset is to like focus on those small to medium sized businesses, the 85%, and build them up. And as we build them up, we build our tool up. And we do have enterprise companies. Some of like, if you're looking at the Roofing Contractor Magazine Top 100, there's a large portion of those roofers that are currently using either some or all of our tools for them. And you have companies that are like that 20 million, 30 million, 40 million.
I got a couple coming on the podcast coming up in the next couple of weeks here.
You got a good friend of ours coming on there too. He uses us for both of his companies, and he's one of those larger companies that are utilizing it. And yeah, so there's more stuff that we need to build. We always are, but we're not looking to jump the gun and go straight from like SMB up into enterprise and just leave everything in the dust there. So as we build our products, we keep in mind our current user base, but what is going to be on the horizon. So if you're a commercial roofer, there's a bunch of stuff that we have commercial roofers using us all the time for our measurements, for our proposals, because high ticket jobs need high ticket looking proposals, right? They need that communication being up, and our system can help with that. But for measurements, you're going to need parapet heights. You're going to need some stuff like that too. That's something that we'll be adding in. Obstruction indicators and custom line items for all that stuff there. Having to be able to map that all out into the proposal, we already have that dialed in, so that's easy enough. And then kind of
that's future stuff coming, possibly, you said, for the commercial?
The parapet and the obstruction line items, you'll see a lot of that this year, actually. Nice. So a lot of these things coming in, you're going to need ESX files for insurance, especially when it comes down to commercial. You need to be able to port that over. That may or may not be coming very, 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 very soon. So like all that stuff is going to be in there. But then you have to take a look at the workflows. The workflows differ. You have different pipelines, you have different flows, you have different inspection reports that you have to build out. So all of these things are either currently being worked on or being currently researched on. And the main thing is we want to be able to build it out so that it's there. One of the things that I can talk about that is coming very soon that should be released in the next, I think, a week or so, Pete, but the contact enrichment is when you're dealing with larger companies or you're dealing with a property management or HOA and stuff like that, there is subset of people in that company that you're communicating on based on different milestones in the job. So for a inspection, you might be dealing with the property manager. For the proposal, you're dealing with the board. For the invoice, you're dealing with the accounting. So we're opening up our contacts to have different kind of levels to that so that we can tag them on to different parts of the field for that. And for commercial roofers or enterprise roofers that deal with those more often than not, rather than the SMBs, it's the exception to the rule. We are building that stuff out from the bottom. So we kind of go bottom up on that stuff, make sure we have that foundation and build up. And as we get there, we'll be able to service more of those people effectively rather than just kind of jumping at that shiny object that's in the distance. Because people always think, let's go after the enterprise because they got the money, but that's not our focus.
Hey, if we're telling younger roofers to not just jump into commercial because it's risky, hey, might as well take the same approach, right? I mean, it just makes sense, right? To be strategic with it for sure. But I like a lot of that stuff. I had a commercial marketing company, so we did basically automated their prospecting and business development for 6 years. And so we generated like 350 commercial leads a week. And now I'm talking to a lot of these guys, like you said, a lot of them are on systems that are just out of date, that aren't serving, because it gets complex, right? Once you get to that size, and every single error is just so much more significant, right? And so that's exciting stuff. I think that's going to be a good fit there. Now, I want to ask you guys this real quick. We kind of bring it to a close. So you said the CEO is your cousin, Nick?
Yeah, unfortunately. No.
So I need one embarrassing story then from you then to throw him under the bus here. Hey,
Pete, what do I do? Do I do the time they made me fall off the roof?
what? Oh, it fell off the roof?
Yeah.
He push you or what?
More or less. I think he tried to kill me, but well, okay. So we were like 20 or less, probably around there. We're doing a huge apartment complex, and it was like it was not super steep. It was like 812 or whatever. But we're in an apartment complex. We're both tied off, but we're young and stupid. So I didn't have the 5-point back then. I just had the waist, the backbreaker, what we called, for the harness. So we were both hooked up, and because it was such a large apartment complex, it was annoying to take the A-frames off. This is like, as an adult now, I would never do this, but it was annoying to take the A-frames off because I had to break them and then put them back in. And I was just like, screw it. There's a vent hole there. There's a truss there. We'll just wrap our rope around the truss and we'll be good. So we're working off of it. And what I didn't notice that he did is I got him to hook into that vent hole on that truss, is that he hooked his rope into the truss, and then he hooked my rope around his rope. And while we were working, we're just counterbalancing each other. And I had no idea. So I was like, hey, man, can you go get some more ice and water so we can start this area here? So he's like, okay, unhooks. And as I was leaning back, 'cause the back breaker was rough on your back, so I would just lean back and let the tension just kind of hold on to me. As he let go, my rope started flying through his rope because there's nothing to counterbalance, and I'm just gone. And I just turned around and I'm like, all right, well, jump. And I was like, I'm going to try to hit that tree. So I just jumped for the tree. It was like a movie where it just went slow-mo, and I thought like I could reach that tree, but I was like 30 feet away from it. There's no way. Like, what? I'm not even...
Dude, I thought you were about to say you're like the craziest athlete all the time. And like,
no, I just plummeted down.
Space Jam.
I was holding onto the rope. By the time I hit the ground, the rope caught, and my rope grab cut up my chest. And he turned around and he's like, yeah, so Nick, and then he ran over to the edge, and I'm on the ground, and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, what do you want? And I was so mad at him. He goes, are you okay? And I was like, yes. And he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to get ice cream. And I just left the job and got ice cream.
Ice cream fixes everything.
So he tried to kill me. Everything. It's not confirmed, but it was definitely an embarrassing story for both of us.
Watch out. Yeah. Richie seems like a nice guy. You gotta watch out. He might push you off the roof, man.
That's right. Or just like mess up the connection point. But yeah, two lessons there. Don't connect through another rope. And number 2, don't cheap out on safety stuff, because it was a pretty easy fix. If I just moved the A-frame, it would have been easy to do. But yeah, we're 20.
That's great. That's awesome. All right. Well, so you left us with that great story, and so now Pete, I'm gonna throw the words of wisdom on you, man. All right. So
nice.
Basically, you close it out with words of wisdom. It could be a book, it could be a quote, it could be a roofing lesson, it could be your favorite shingle, whatever you think is of value, and we'll close her out.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, do your homework, right? And when you're looking at CRMs, the biggest thing to keep in mind is you get out of a CRM what you put into it, right? And so make sure that your process is dialed in, make sure that your people understand it, and make sure that they're utilizing. We talked about how the CRM, if you're utilizing it effectively, is essentially ingrained in your process and in your day-to-day, and make sure that it becomes a part. It's like another employee, right? Like, make sure it's part of your everyday workflow. It's part of your everyday process, so that your people are leveraging it, but also so that your people are utilizing it properly, so that you get out of it what you want to get out of it, right? And so I think that's the biggest mistake, is we get a CRM, we expect the CRM to do magical things, right, for our business.
Oh, yeah.
But if you don't do your homework and you don't put in the effort to put the information into it, and you don't train your people to put the information into it, it's essentially rendered useless, right? Like, it's just there and you're paying for it, and it's completely ineffective, right? So that would be my biggest, word of advice, is like, hey, set this up in a way, set your process up in a way that you're really leveraging this thing the way you should, because it will pay you huge dividends. I mean, if you've seen the masterclass we did with Amanda Vnot a couple of weeks ago, there's someone who's leveraging our CRM the way it should be leveraged. She's got her team feeding the information in. She's able to pull incredible data out of there, which is giving her incredible insights to help her make educated decisions, right? And so it's changing the whole course of how she does business, because she can look at the data, she can look at the stuff that's in the CRM, and she can make educated moves based off of that, right? Which is allowing her to find tremendous success at a very early stage in her business. And so I think that's a great lesson for people is, I think the days of obviously if you're very, very small, you probably don't need a CRM right out of the box, but with something like Roofr that's very cost effective, you can, if you want to use,
you got to at that point.
You know what I mean? You can use it from day one.
At that price, you have to. You might as well.
Yeah, and now you're putting your information in it from day one, and now you can monitor all that stuff, and the system can evolve with you, and you can literally use it as a way to leverage, driving the business, right? You can make much more educated decisions, manage your workflows, manage your money, right? Your financials off of it. It's just a way smarter way to do business altogether.
And this is the Roofing Operating System podcast, right? And you said an operating system, and the operating system is basically the value of your business, right? So do you think it was easy if you see all these people with these beautifully run companies, or do you think it took them years and experience and wisdom and reaching out for advice, finding the right tools, all that kind of stuff?
Making mistakes.
Making mistakes, right? Like a CRM, don't use it as a cop out, right? If you're on your fifth different one or whatever, no matter what, it's going to be difficult. It is a process. Commit to it, right? You have a good support team, a good tool with Roofr if you decide to go with them or are currently on that tool. So make sure you guys are checking it out. If you guys are interested in more, you just go to roofr.com, book that call. Nic, Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you guys. Appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us.
Really appreciate your time.